In the heart of Accra, where the modern world meets deep-rooted traditions, Ama and Kwame were beginning their life together. The sun shone brightly over the city, casting a warm glow on the bustling streets. The couple had just celebrated their wedding, a grand event that brought together their families and friends from across Ghana. The ceremony was a beautiful mix of modern and traditional elements. Ama wore a stunning white gown for the church ceremony, and later, she and Kwame changed into colorful kente attire for the customary rites. Ama was a graceful and intelligent woman, respected for her sharp mind and kind heart. She worked as a nurse at a busy hospital in the city, where she was known for her dedication and compassion. Kwame, her husband, was an architect who loved designing buildings that blended modern and traditional Ghanaian styles. Together, they were a perfect match, united by love and a shared vision for their future. But as the months passed, a shadow began to creep into their marriage. The joy of their union was slowly overshadowed by an unspoken tension. Ama had not yet conceived a child. In many African cultures, having a child, especially a son, is seen as a continuation of the family line. For the Akan people, children are not only a blessing, but also a fulfillment of the marital bond. Kwame's family, particularly his mother, Abena, began to grow anxious as time passed, without news of a pregnancy. Abena was a woman deeply rooted in tradition. She had raised Kwame and his siblings with a strong sense of cultural pride and the importance of family. To her, the idea of a marriage without children was unthinkable. Each time she visited Ama and Kwame, her eyes would linger on Ama's flat stomach, and she would ask subtle but probing questions. "Ama, my dear," Abena said one evening, as she sat with Ama in their living room, her voice laced with concern. "How are you feeling these days? Have you seen the doctor recently?" Ama forced a smile, though she felt a tightness in her chest. "I'm well, Mama Abena. We're taking things one step at a time." Abena nodded, but Ama could see the disappointment in her eyes. "It's important to take care of yourself, my daughter. The ancestors are watching over you, and they will bless you in their time." Kwame, who had overheard the conversation, joined them with a gentle touch on Ama's shoulder. "Mama, we are doing everything we can. Let's not rush the process." But the pressure was not just from Abena. It came from all sides: friends, extended family, and even colleagues at work. Ama could feel their eyes on her, their questions like needles pricking at her confidence. The pressure to conceive, to fulfill her role as a wife and future mother, was becoming unbearable. As the months turned into a year, Ama and Kwame decided to seek medical advice. They visited specialists who ran tests and offered treatments, but each visit ended with the same frustrating results. There was no clear reason why Ama wasn't conceiving. The doctors assured them that sometimes it simply took time, but this was little comfort to Ama, who felt the weight of her culture's expectations pressing down on her. Abena, growing impatient, began to suggest more traditional methods. "Ama, have you thought about seeing the herbalist?" she asked one afternoon. "There are herbs that can help, remedies passed down through generations." Ama was hesitant. While she respected her mother-in-law and the traditions she represented, she had always believed in modern medicine. But as the pressure continued to mount, she found herself considering alternatives she had once dismissed. One day, after yet another visit to the doctor with no new answers, Ama decided to visit a local herbalist, a man named Kofi, who was known in the community for his knowledge of traditional remedies. The small shop was tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, surrounded by the hustle of everyday life. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of herbs and roots, and shelves lined with bottles and jars filled the room. Kofi greeted her warmly. "What brings you here today?" Ama explained her situation, her voice tinged with desperation. Kofi listened carefully, nodding as she spoke. "I see," he said finally. "The journey to motherhood is not always an easy one, but there are ways to help nature along." He prepared a mixture of herbs and roots, instructing her on how to use them. "Take this regularly," he advised. "But remember, the body and the spirit must be in harmony. Keep your mind at peace and trust in the process." Ama thanked him and left with the herbs, hoping that this would finally bring the results she and Kwame had been waiting for. Weeks turned into months, and still, there was no sign of a pregnancy. Ama felt the walls closing in around her. Her relationship with Kwame began to strain under the pressure. They had always been close, but now, conversations became tense, and the silence that filled their home grew heavier with each passing day. One Saturday morning, Ama went to the local market to buy food. The market was bustling with activity, vendors shouting their prices, customers haggling over goods, and the air filled with the aroma of fresh produce and spices. As Ama moved through the crowded stalls, she felt a hand grab her arm. She turned to see an older woman from the neighborhood, Auntie Adjoa, a known gossip who never missed an opportunity to spread rumors. "Ama, my dear," Auntie Adjoa said, her voice dripping with false concern. "We've all been wondering, when will we hear the good news? It's been so long and people are starting to talk." Ama's heart raced with anger and humiliation. She tried to pull away, but Auntie Adjoa held on, her grip tightening. "You know, it's important for a wife to give her husband a child. Maybe you're not doing everything you should?" The words stung, and before Ama could stop herself, she snapped. "What I do or don't do is none of your business, Auntie. Keep your nose out of my affairs." Auntie Adjoa's eyes widened in shock, and the surrounding vendors and customers turned to watch the commotion. Ama, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment, pulled her arm free and hurried away, her heart pounding in her chest. As she rushed through the market, tears stung her eyes. The confrontation had left her shaken, but it had also sparked a fire within her. She realized that she couldn't keep living under the weight of other people's expectations. Something had to change. Ama's confrontation with Auntie Adjoa left her feeling both empowered and isolated. She began to withdraw from social events, avoiding the prying eyes and probing questions of the community. At home, the tension between her and Kwame continued to grow. They were like two strangers living under the same roof, each lost in their own thoughts and fears. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table in silence, Kwame finally spoke. "Ama, we can't go on like this. We're barely talking, and I hate seeing you so unhappy." Ama looked up from her plate, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "I'm sorry, Kwame. I just don't know what else to do. Everyone is expecting us to have a child, and I feel like I'm failing you, failing us." Kwame reached across the table and took her hand. "You're not failing anyone, Ama. We'll get through this together, no matter what. But we need to start communicating again, to remember why we fell in love in the first place." Ama nodded, her heart aching with the love she still felt for him. But the fear of not living up to expectations continued to gnaw at her, a constant presence in the back of her mind. Abena, sensing that Ama was struggling, began to take matters into her own hands. She approached Ama one afternoon with a serious expression. "Ama, my daughter, we need to consider other options. There are ways to ensure the continuation of the family line. You must think about what's best for Kwame and the family." Ama's heart sank. She knew what Abena was implying, but the thought of involving another woman in her marriage was too painful to bear. Still, the pressure was relentless, and Ama began to feel as if she had no choice. Ama's desperation reached its peak one night when she overheard a conversation between Abena and Kwame. They were in the living room, and Ama was just out of sight in the hallway. "Kwame," Abena said, her voice firm. "You know how important it is for our family to have an heir. If Ama cannot provide that, we must consider other options. The family is already talking, and it won't be long before they start taking matters into their own hands." Kwame's response was softer, filled with conflict. "Mama, I love Ama. I don't want anyone else, but I understand the pressure we're under." Ama's heart broke as she listened. She realized that no matter how much Kwame loved her, the pressure from his family and their cultural expectations was pushing him to consider something unthinkable to her, taking another wife. The next day, Ama made a decision. She would visit another herbalist, one who was known for more drastic measures. This herbalist, Auntie Adjoa, was known for helping women conceive through unconventional means, methods that were whispered about but rarely spoken of openly. Ama arrived at Auntie Adjoa's home, a small, nondescript building in a quieter part of the city. Inside, The atmosphere was different from Nana Kofi's shop. It was darker, the air heavy with incense and the sound of distant drumming. Auntie Adjoa, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, listened to Ama's plight without much emotion. "You want a child," she said simply. "There are ways to make this happen, but you must be willing to do whatever it takes. Are you prepared for that?" Ama hesitated, but nodded. "I'll do anything." Auntie Adjoa nodded and began preparing a mixture of herbs and powders, but she also gave Ama a small talisman, instructing her to perform a specific ritual at night. "This will invite the spirits to bless your womb," she explained. "But remember, the path you choose now cannot be undone." Ama took the talisman and the herbs, feeling a mix of hope and fear. She returned home, determined to follow the instructions, even though a part of her was terrified of what she was about to do. That night, after Kwame had fallen asleep, Ama crept out of bed and went to the small prayer room they had set up in their home. The room was dimly lit, with a single candle flickering in the corner. She set up the items Auntie Adjoa had given her, laying them out on a cloth on the floor. Following the instructions, she mixed the herbs and powders with water, creating a thick paste. She then took the talisman and held it over the mixture, whispering the words Auntie Adjoa had taught her. As she spoke, the air in the room seemed to grow heavier, the shadows dancing around her. Ama's heart raced as she completed the ritual, the final step requiring her to place the talisman under her pillow and sleep with it there until she conceived. She did as instructed, feeling a deep sense of unease as she crawled back into bed next to Kwame. The next morning, Ama awoke feeling drained, as if the ritual had taken something from her. But she pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the hope that this would finally bring the results she and Kwame had been waiting for. In the weeks that followed, Ama began to notice changes. She felt different, more tired, more on edge. But she also began to experience strange, unsettling dreams. In these dreams, she was surrounded by shadows, with voices whispering to her, telling her things she couldn't understand. One night, she woke up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding. She looked over at Kwame, who was sleeping soundly beside her, and felt a wave of guilt wash over her. She hadn't told him about the ritual, hadn't shared the fear that had driven her to seek out Auntie Adjoa's help. As the weeks turned into months, Ama's anxiety grew. She began to feel a growing distance between herself and Kwame, as if the secret she was keeping was driving a wedge between them. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth. Then, one morning, Ama woke up feeling nauseous. She rushed to the bathroom where she was sick. Her heart raced as she realized what this could mean. Could she finally be pregnant? Ama took a pregnancy test, her hands shaking as she waited for the result. When the test showed positive, she felt a surge of relief and joy, but also a deep, lingering fear. What had she done? Kwame was ecstatic when Ama told him the news. He lifted her in his arms, spinning her around with joy. "Ama, this is wonderful. Our prayers have been answered." Abena, upon hearing the news, was equally thrilled. "The ancestors have blessed us," she declared, her eyes shining with pride. "We must give thanks and prepare for the new arrival." But as the months passed, Ama's fears intensified. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that the ritual she had performed had consequences she hadn't anticipated. She began to see shadows out of the corner of her eye and hear whispers in the night that kept her awake, her heart pounding with dread. Ama knew that the choices she had made were leading her down a path she couldn't turn back from. She had sought help from an unknown source, and now she would have to face the consequences of that decision.
Thank you for being part of Ama and Kwame's emotional journey, where love and tradition collide in unexpected ways. But this is just the beginning. Dark secrets will be uncovered, and the real challenges are yet to come. If you've been drawn into Ama's story and are anxious to see what lies ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. The suspense is building, and in just 1 week, the gripping continuation will reveal the choices Ama must face and the consequences that could change everything. Stay with us for part 2, where the stakes get higher, the tension mounts, and the truth comes to light. You won't want to miss it.